Hi teachers, we're about to get started now. Just had a couple of tech things to work out. So if you're watching right now, hang on and I'll be with you in 2 ticks. As you arrive, please write in the chat box, which you should see just on the right-hand side of this video. Please write in there whether you're teaching today. And if you're not teaching today or if you've got some time off, please let me know what fun things you have planned. Whether it's just cleaning the house or you're going on a trip somewhere. If you're on the other side of the world and the day is already over, then tell me what you did, because obviously it's already happened because you're in the future. So please do write in there and let me know where in the world you are right now, because I'd love to see what kind of teachers we have online and where you all are. I'm just going to write a quick message. And I know I didn't give a lot of warning, so I am going to just wait a few minutes to make sure that everyone has a chance to arrive, because I was a tiny bit late sending my emails and stuff out. Davenport Suzuki Violin School, no name because it's under their business account. In Virginia, lessons later today. Nice. I have one student today. That's what summer is like here. I had a bunch yesterday and some on Tuesday, but I just have one later today, one adult student. So this was the perfect day to do this workshop. Catherine Radcliffe. Oh, calling from Yorkshire in the UK, teaching 7 lessons this afternoon. So you must be getting started pretty shortly, Catherine. Bravo Music Academy, hi. Great to see you again. Teaching later after visiting Grandpa, nice. Get some family time in before you're teaching. Ontario, Canada. No lessons for the summer, woohoo! Yeah, I'm almost, like I say, 1 lesson today, so it's almost a day off. And Kitty Hawk, NC, North Colorado, is that right? Off today, awesome. Jerry calling from Mesquite, might be saying that wrong, Texas. And Chris, hi Chris, seeing you around the group. Oklahoma City, 1 teen, 1 adult today, awesome. Very slow day, yeah, like me. And Janelle, good morning to you, Janelle. It's afternoon here, but good morning to you where you are. You're in Indiana. 1 lesson later today, a newbie. I had some new students who they're on my waiting list and they might be joining in September yesterday. And it was actually super fun because I haven't had a new student in a long time because I've been so full. And yeah, it's a really, really fun experience. One of them, I mean, she'd obviously been begging for piano. So it was amazing to open up new stuff to her. I love doing that. Sheila Dacus, North Carolina. No lessons, but an end-of-year mini recital of siblings and 2 interviews for waiting list. Okay, well, still a busy day then. Probably busier than just having lessons. Mini recital, nice. And Jerry has 10 lessons later today. Okay, that's pretty busy. Well, it depends how long they are, but still, that's pretty busy. Even if they're half-hour lessons, that's quite a lot. Okay, so keep adding your highs and letting me know what you're up to today and what the schedule looks like. I'm always interested because we have teachers all over the world joining in, and I find it really interesting who's teaching during the summer, or if they're down under. Not many will be today because I think, what is it, like 11 there? So, I mean, in Melbourne anyway. So, yeah, not many will be joining us from down there, but if they are, they're obviously in winter. So they're in normal teaching schedule mode, but it's always interesting to see who takes the summer off and who doesn't. Right, so keep adding your highs and your hellos, and I'm going to switch over to the slides now. So you're not going to see my face in a second. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see the slides. It normally takes a second just to load up, so don't worry if it goes black for a sec. Okay, and hopefully this will show up now. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen okay. You'll see the menu bar at the top because when I don't have that on, Google gets really cross with me. So we're going to leave that right there, but you should be able to see the slides. Sorry, duplicate audio there. You should be able to see the slides okay. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to see so many of you here. I absolutely love it that you can join me live today. And we're going to be talking about intermediate practice habits and how we can take students from that beginner stage up to the intermediate stage and improve their practice habits to get them ready for that transition. This was at the special request of the teachers in the Vibrant Music Studio teachers community on Facebook. If you're not in there, you should get in there, because I generally, unless I have something specific I want to talk about, I let them do the voting. So a lot of people will have come over from there. And I like to let you all vote on what we should talk about and what you'd be interested in hearing about. Before we get to the main presentation, just a little bit about me. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a teacher in Dublin in Ireland. I'm the author of the Piano Practice Physician's Handbook, which you can find on Amazon and all those sorts of places. I blog at colourfulkeys.ie, and I have the Facebook community that I've just mentioned, the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers. So most of you will know me from Colourful Keys, my blog, and from the community on Facebook, one of those two. I wear a lot of different hats and I do a lot of different things, but it all is tied together with my passion for creative, inclusive, and forward-thinking piano teaching and helping other teachers to do the same without burning themselves out and without stressing, and while keeping a good work-life balance. In today's workshop, like I said, we're going to talk about improving intermediate student practice. We're going to talk about 5 different things here. We're going to talk about goal setting first, and then target setting. So I'll let you know what the difference is between those two, obviously. And then I'm going to talk about 3 different issues which generally hold intermediate students back if they can't overcome these things. So we're going to talk about specific strategies for fixing those 3 common earlier intermediate student problems in their practice. And at the very end, I will share with you a free printable teaching strategy for one of those to help you implement it in your lessons. So make sure you stick around for that. If you have questions throughout, you'll see the chat box on the right. Continue to say your hellos if you haven't already. And if you have questions throughout, please do write in there, because I have a second screen open. I can keep a little bit of an eye on the chat box. There is a slight delay between the video and the chat and stuff. So if you don't hear back from me straight away, I might not have seen it and it might not have come up yet. So just wait 2 ticks and I will get back to you. And of course, if there's questions I don't answer, I'll scroll back through at the very end and double check all of those to make sure everyone gets their answers. So feel free to leave questions in there, and I'll leave extra time for that at the end. So what is this stumbling block? Why were teachers so interested to hear about this particular topic? Well, there's a reason that this is such an issue, and it's because up to this point, students could get away with less than ideal practice habits. So there are things they could have been doing that, as a beginner, didn't make a big difference. They weren't great, but they didn't have a huge impact on their playing and their progress. So they might have been making good progress until now, but somewhere along the way, they missed a step or they missed out on something, and they've kind of hit a wall or started slowing down quite rapidly. This could be because they're measuring practice in minutes instead of what was achieved, or it might be because they're counting their repetitions instead of focusing on the progress they're making. So these are the things we're going to solve today. The first thing we're going to talk about is goal setting. Why is goal setting important to talk about in this topic? Well, setting goals themselves helps students to take ownership over their music journey, over their studies. It gives them more freedom to define themselves and decide what it is that they want to do with music. It also helps to foster independence and a more collaborative relationship with the teacher. So while you still want to be very much in the teacher role, as students move through their journey, one of my goals is that eventually they won't need me and they'll be able to keep learning music, playing new things, and discovering new things throughout their lives. And if they're going to do that, we need to gradually give them more independence over their own music learning. It also gives them responsibility for if they achieve these goals. If there are goals that feel arbitrary to them that you set, they don't really feel that responsibility over whether they do those things or not. But if they set them themselves, then they can take more responsibility over whether they put in the work or they didn't to achieve those things. It also prepares them for facing more challenging studies as they're more invested in the process and used to working and planning things out in this way. What kind of questions can you ask in goal setting? Well, you can ask anything such as what do you want to learn in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, whatever you like. You could ask what's one piece that you'd love to be able to play. You might get a lot of fur leases back, so be prepared for that. But that is a good question to ask because it gives them a specific goal, a specific aim that they can see in the future. What skills do you want to improve this year? You know, in my goal setting that I just did a couple of weeks ago as my students were finishing up, several of them who are slightly weak note readers and were a little bit, I don't want to say lazy, but a little bit resistant to learning their notes and practicing them, actually identified themselves once I asked that this was a skill they wanted to improve because it would make their whole piano journey easier. So you might be surprised. They might have specific skills that they know they need to work on, like rhythm or note reading or scales or whatever it is, and they might identify that themselves. And then, most importantly, ask them, how much practice would this take? What's the work you need to put in to achieve this? You'll see the goal worksheet that I shared on the right there, looking back and moving forward. That's on my blog. It's only a couple of weeks ago. So if you go to the main blog page, you'll see it fairly shortly below the top. And that's appropriate even for, you know, a 5 or 6 year old. As long as you do the writing and you help talk them through it, they can set their own goals. So this isn't exclusive to older students or teenagers or adults. The next thing I want to talk about is target setting. So what's the difference? Well, targets are what I'm calling the really short-term goals. These are the things that you set with your students each week, and they're revisited at each lesson so that they contribute to the larger goals. So these are kind of the sub-goals, and they're more specific, and they help to cultivate efficient practice strategies because students are focusing on exactly what they're going to do for next week. So let's talk about that, how these would be set. How exact are they? Well, it's very important that you get your students to set the targets. This is one of the key things. Now, they may not do a great job in the beginning, but that's part of the process. And if you don't let them do it, if you keep suggesting things or coming up with targets for them, then they're not going to ever learn to create targets for themselves. And this is about that independence that we want to bring them to in the end. As they're setting their goals, you can, of course, prompt them and ask questions to help them figure something out. And you can help them to define it so that it's very specific. This is the most important thing. If, when they come back the next week, you can't say, or they can't say, whether it was achieved or not, definitely, yes or no, then it's not specific enough. You may have heard of SMART goals. So those are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Well, this is time-bound because you probably have a lesson every week, but those other points are important to bear in mind as you set these targets. And this can, again, be very simple. You'll see that assignment sheet on the right there. That's from my Practice Turbo Booster, which you can find on my main blog. And it just has a little space for a goal. Then they come back the next week and I ask them whether that was achieved with that piece, and then we assess whether it really was achieved with that piece or not. So an example of a good goal would be, say, I want to be able to play this at 60 BPM with the metronome without stopping, or only stopping one time, or whatever it is. It just has to be very specific. You'll see on that assignment sheet as well, it says color in a whatever animal is there every time you play this successfully. So that means with the goal in mind or with the goal completed. There should be no doubt it was hit, and you need to keep checking back with these things, as I've said, and then set more targets and keep going, and they'll get really good at setting their own targets and then focusing on them during the week because they know that's what you're going to be asking about when they come back. Just take a quick second here to check in. Christy says hello from Houston, Texas. Hi, Christy. Great to see you. And Kim from Milwaukee. Hi, Kim. Great to see you here. Back to teaching today after a short break. Start with an older adult and end with a high schooler. Great that you're here. Glad you could check in before that gets started. Now we're moving on to these 3 practice strategies that I mentioned. So these are specific practice strategies that you can use to solve some of the most common early intermediate stage issues with piano practice. Just a quick note before I get to the actual strategies. Make sure that you rinse and repeat these. These are not sudden, transformative, amazing things that you just tell your student to do and they do it and everything's better. That's magic. That's not piano teaching. So don't expect sudden transformations. Walk through all the exercises together in the lesson. Have your student explain it back to you. So get them to say, get them to tell you what the steps were that were involved in that practice strategy. So what did we do then? What did we do next? How did that work? Why did that help? Ask them lots of probing questions, but get them to explain it to you rather than you telling them what happened. Assign this for practice. Write out the steps clearly. Explain it to parents of younger students. Or with older students, definitely get them to write out the steps themselves in their own words. That's the most powerful way to do it. And then at the next lesson, you need to revisit this strategy. Do it again together in the lesson and repeat the whole process. Do this over and over until it really sticks. And like magic, they start to do these steps themselves whenever they have this issue, and they don't even have to think about it. So the first problem we're going to solve, I call in my book and in my practice course, Instant memorization. Now, this sounds like it might not be a problem, but if you've experienced it, you'll know what I'm talking about. The problem here is that students try to memorize straight away without really memorizing properly. What they're doing is maybe compensating for weak reading skills, relying on their ear playing and their oral memory, and memorizing inaccurately. So missing details, maybe even playing the wrong notes that they're hearing incorrectly, or maybe just missing harmony notes and only playing melody notes, maybe missing articulations, dynamics, all sorts of things because they're not paying attention to the score. They also might kind of guess and stab at different notes until it's correct. So they kind of play a D and then an E to check it and then stick with the E, something like that. The cure I'm giving you for this is called Score Spruce Up. So this is one of the cures from my course and my book. And what you do for this is you photocopy an upcoming piece or several pieces. These should be pieces your student hasn't started yet. Maybe they don't even know they're going to be learning. And maybe from a book they don't have yet that you're planning to give them, say in 1 or 2 months. Write instructions at the top. Sorry, Darlene says she can't hear me. If someone else could just write in whether you can hear me, that would be great, just so I'm sure that everything's okay. And if it is, then Darlene, I suggest refreshing the page. Or if you want to hop on over to my YouTube channel directly in case it works better there, but it shouldn't really. Yep, bravo. So she says she can hear me, so that's great. It must be something on your end, Darlene. So refresh the page, make sure there's no mute button, try clearing your cache, that kind of thing. And hopefully it'll start working for you. Obviously, if you can't hear me, that doesn't help. Anyway, don't know why I'm giving verbal instructions to someone who can't hear me. So we'll move on. Hopefully Darlene can get that sorted. So the Score Spruce Up. So you photocopy these pieces and you have several of these photocopies, maybe from a book that you haven't gotten to yet. Then when you give the piece to your student, you write instructions at the top. So I like to do lots of different colorful type instructions. Circle the scales in red, find all the primary triads in blue, translate the Italian terms into English in purple. I just like to make it colorful because it comes back all decorated and it's just a bit more fun that way. But whatever is applicable to that piece, that's what you should write at the top, whatever is going to be useful theory wise. Thank you so much for writing that in the chat box there. I just can't do that while I'm talking here. So what you do is you assign these for homework and don't ask your student to practice them. In fact, specifically tell them they're not supposed to play them. Then they'll bring them back at the following week's lesson and give them back to you. And you just hang on to those, put them in your student's folder that you keep, and give them new ones. These could be some of the repeated pieces or completely different pieces with new instructions, new theory things to point out, new colors. And repeat this several times until maybe your student has encountered the same piece like 3 or 4 times. And then you present them with all these decorated score studies and talk about them together before giving them the clean copy of the music or the actual book, whatever it is. And as you do this, the student is learning more and more about it without playing it. So they've got no ear association to work with. They're just focusing on the score. As you do this over the time, it'll be much easier to read the music because it's so accessible, so studied, that they'll stop relying on this ear playing or this oral memory or whatever it is they're doing to do their instant memorization. Let me know if you have questions as we go, if anything was unclear there, especially since I interrupted myself so many times. Sorry about that. But let me know if you have questions as we go and I can clarify anything for you there. The next issue we're going to talk about that would really help intermediate students to move forward is start again syndrome. The problem here is that students are starting at the beginning every single time. And this is one of the most common things that slips by when students are in the beginning stages, mostly because their piece might only be even 4, 8, 12 bars long. So it doesn't make a huge difference that they're starting at the beginning because their piece is basically a section of a larger piece long. But as they move into longer and longer pieces, this becomes a real issue because the start is always better than the end. And they're probably not able to pick up from where they made a mistake or work on an isolated section because they can only start from the start. So the longer their pieces, as they get into 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 pages long, I mean, it's just impossible for them to make good progress if they're starting at the beginning every time. So my cure for this is, one of my cures from the course is at 6s and 7s. What you do for this is you write the numbers 1 to 6 on the music at strategic spots. So good places to start from is what I mean by that. Then roll a die. And then whatever number it lands on, the student needs to start from there and play to the end. So if you roll 3, then they need to start from 3 and play all the way to the end. If you roll 1, they play the whole piece. If you roll 6, they play just the last section. So in this way, they're naturally playing the end the most times, which is so valuable for these students. It's called at 6s and 7s because we play it 7 times. So we roll the die and play 7 times in a row. This is the one that I'm sharing the steps with you, the PDF with you at the end. So stay tuned for that because it makes it really easy to follow. And there's a tracking chart that you can use in your lessons and print out and use with your students. Again, let me know if you have questions about this one, or just if you identify with the start again syndrome and how frustrating it can be when students insist on doing this. I'd love to hear from you. So obstacle sneezes, I'm moving on to next. And this is the third practice issue that I think is really common with advancing intermediate students, people heading from beginner into intermediate stages. The obstacle sneeze is what my nickname for when students pause before something and then they sort of launch forward into it. So like there's this characteristic pausing and then suddenly starting again, possibly even faster. It's usually at a tricky spot, tricky part, challenging part of a piece. And it breaks up the tempo and flow and never gets better if they keep practicing this way because they're practicing to do this. They're practicing to pause and then launch forward. They're not practicing to iron out the issue. So we need to break this habit first and foremost. The way I'm suggesting you do this today, one of my practice strategies from the book and the course, is edge backwards. To do this, you pick out the tricky part. Could be several bars, 1 bar, whatever it is in this case. And then they play this tricky part. I like to draw a box around it on the music so they can see, or put those little highlighter tabs either side so they can see the start and end point. So they play this tricky part until they can play it. Then they play the tricky part plus 1 before, could be 1 beat before, 1 note before, something like that. Play the tricky part in 2 before, 3 before, keep going until the bit before is the same length at least as the tricky part. So if the tricky part was 3 bars, you should keep going until you're 3 bars before the tricky part. Just going to give you a good view of how that would look. So section 1 there is the original tricky bit. Section 2 is 1 note before. I've gone in this case because there's a held chord there. Section 3 is 2 notes before, and then they're back at section 5 to 2 bars before, which is the length of the tricky part. So that's finishing the process up. I'm just going to pause here to check in with the comments. Must love music piano. You could do this by taking a scan of the music and uploading it to Notability, to let them use markup in their email. You certainly could, yeah. I like the physical paper and pencil approach. I think it makes it even more concrete for them. I know it's a waste of trees, but I don't find it to be a waste because I do think it makes a big difference to the overall retention of the concept if you get them to really color it in and they get to see all those colored sheets in front of them with all the different stuff that they already know how to do. I think that makes a bigger impact. But you certainly could do it with tech also. So those were my 3 teaching strategies for you, and the 2 more tips about goal setting and target setting that I think will really help you with your intermediate students' practice habits. But for even more piano teaching strategies just like these with this practical approach, you're going to want to check out my course, which is the Piano Practice Physicians Clinic. Why do I talk about a clinic? You know, my book is called The Physician's Handbook and the course is called The Clinic. Why do I use this analogy? Well, the reason is because it encourages you to be analytic and thoughtful about things. And I believe it keeps you focused on a cure. In other words, it takes your focus away from fretting and stressing about an issue, getting worried about things, getting annoyed that your student isn't doing it the right way, and your student possibly getting upset that they're not doing it the right way. It takes it away from criticism and pushes it towards what can we do to fix this? How can we solve this together? And this focus on better practice instead of more practice is even more vital these days when we have so many students who are just way overscheduled. They don't have this extra time to waste at the piano. If they get 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever it is, we need to use all of that time as efficiently as possible. And this approach is what helps me to do that. The most important point about talking in this way about clinics and physicians and analytics is that actually working in this way leads to more job satisfaction and fun for you as a teacher. And when you're having more fun as a teacher, I know your students will have more fun too, because they can feel it. They can feel the difference when you're just phoning it in or when you really are enjoying it and getting a lot of pleasure out of your work. How is the course structured? Well, it's split up into 6 parts. In part 1, I talk about chronic ailments. These are the bad practice habits that seem to be so persistent and just won't go away. Then there's fevers and chills. These are problems with tempo, playing too quickly, too slowly, or uneven, fluctuating tempo. Heart palpitations are the rhythm and beat difficulties, which I know a lot of piano teachers struggle to teach and to fix when students just don't get it. Then there's vision impairment. So this is all the times when you have to say, remember the blank, remember the dynamics, remember the accidentals, remember the articulation. That's where we get students to really pay attention to what's on the score for themselves and stop us nagging them, basically. The ear infections are the musical insensitivities. So this is students who are not in touch with the music, playing it maybe like a robot or maybe too loud or too soft, not really connecting to the music in that way. And then the last section is all about the aches and pains, which are the issues with technique and things like that. So it could be wrists being too low, not using their wrists properly. It could be collapsing fingertip joints, you know, those floppy fingertips at the very top, or round hand shape. All these things that we need to remind students about and get them to do so that they're set up for success at the piano. There are 98 videos in the course, which I know sounds like, oh my God, I would never get to all of those. There is a reason that I've set it up with all these videos. It's not overwhelming, I promise. The reason there are so many is because they're all bite-sized. And the reason they're all bite-sized is I don't want teachers to be frustrated. I don't want you to be feeling like, oh, was that around minute 40 that she said that thing about the fingertips collapsing? You know, that doesn't help you to get results. What helps you to get results is that you're able to jump onto the website, find that video that you watched last week about floppy fingertips, watch it in 2 minutes while you have a sip of coffee, not even a full coffee, and then get on with using it with your next student of the day. So you can fit these videos in when students are late, before you finish up for the studio for the day, over your breakfast, whenever you want to do it, and you can find what you're looking for and jump around. There's no specific way that you have to work through it. You can look at the parts that interest you most straight away, or you can work from start to finish and follow a logical progression that way either. There is a workbook included, a printable workbook that helps you to take action, take notes on what students you want to apply these techniques to and how you want to use these things. And there's also a forum on the site and a Facebook group. So you're not just thrown at these videos and then we forget about you. You're able to ask questions just like you're doing in the chat box now. You can get in touch with me and other teachers who are taking the course and say, what is it that she means by this? What did you mean, Nicola, when you said XYZ? You can find out specifically what it is and get help adapting these things for your students if there are things that you feel should be covered in a different way for your students in your studio, and I'll help you with that. The regular price of this course is $97, which you'll see is already pretty good value because it's less than $1 a video. However, since you're live on the webinar, I'd love to offer you a discount of $30 for the next 24 hours only. And I do tend to be very specific about these things. So 3 p.m. my time tomorrow, which will be 10 a.m. New York time tomorrow, I will switch off this discount code. So you need to act quickly to get the $30. That's over 30% discount. Enter the coupon code LEVELUP, all one word, at checkout, and you'll get that $30 off the course price. But that's not it. You can also get a free copy, studio licensed copy, of my playful practice cards, which are practice prompts that get your students thinking and doing different activities in their practice time, if you're one of the first 5 people who buy with that code. So move even quicker than that 24-hour window to get those studio license cards. This is what they look like. Comes with a studio license, so you can print it as many times as you like for use in your own studio. Now, if you already have the practice cards, if you're a big fan and you already have playful practice, that's cool. You can still get the pensive practice cards. I'll be happy to change it to the pensive practice, the other level of those, if you don't have those yet. If you do, I'd be happy to gift your copy to another teacher of your choosing. So either way, that license won't go to waste just because you already have the cards. You're welcome to gift them to another teacher that you know. Now you can get that freebie that I mentioned, the practice technique at 6s and 7s, by going to pianophysician.com, that's the website you should be on right now, /levelup. And you'll get that freebie. It's available to download directly from that page. You just click on the link and the PDF should open. If you have any trouble with that, please do get in touch, email me, or write to me in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers community on Facebook to if there's any technical glitches or anything like that for you, but it should work great. Now, if you have questions about anything I talked about today, or other stuff to do with intermediate students, or other stuff to do with piano teaching generally, I'll be happy to stick around for a little while here as long as there's questions. And I'm just going to leave this up for you now. So to check out that course, go to pianophysician.com/course, enter the coupon code LEVELUP at checkout to get your $30, 30% off discount. And act quickly to get those practice cards. The first 5 will get that studio license of those playful practice cards with the practice prompts. And you can get the freebie at pianophysician.com/levelup. So please do write your questions in the chat box now. I'm going to have a look through. So Andrea Kane, thank you so much. Your expertise is helpful and appreciated. I'm so glad to help, Andrea. It's absolutely a delight to talk to teachers. I just love doing these live trainings, and I'm really glad that you found it helpful. If anyone has any questions, just write them in there. I'm going to take a look back through because Davenport Suzuki Violin School gave a tip to Darlene, who had trouble with the video. So thank you so much for that. And to Bravo Music Academy as well. That's really helpful. Thank you so much for helping out. Probably should have an assistant, but I'm afraid I don't. So I have to keep an eye on the chat at the same time here. Who was it that was wondering? Someone was wondering why their YouTube nickname showed up in the chat box. They must have deleted that comment because I saw it earlier. But the reason that does that is this is done through YouTube. It's on my webpage, but it's embedded from YouTube. So if you're wondering about that, that's why that is. We're just checking in with our tech now. Okay, so great. Could I see the first tips and cures? You know what? Must Love Music Piano, whatever your actual name is. I will post the replay in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers community on Facebook. So please do go check in there and you'll get it that way. Otherwise, if you are on my email list, if you're on the list for this webinar specifically, you'll get the replay link as well. So it will be available. You can go back and watch through there. Hopefully that'll be helpful for you. If anyone has any questions about those practice tips or the course or anything else, please do write them in. I'm going to leave that page up on the screen for anyone that needs those links. Rosemary. Oh, hi, Rosemary. Yes, that'll be in the group. So you can check that out there. As I say, I have the 2 Facebook groups now. So there is another one that's just for members of the course. And then there's a Vibrant Music Studio Teachers community, which is open to all teachers. So even if you're in there already, do invite your music teacher friends. Any music teachers are welcome. It's mostly designed for private music educators, instrumental, vocal teachers, that sort of thing. And we try to keep it extremely positive. If you're in there, you may have noticed how positive I try to keep everything, because I think we have a bit too much snarkiness online, and I try to prevent that from showing up at all. People can disagree, but once they're even a tiny bit snarky or they're dropping in their links to stuff without a real reason to do so, I'm afraid they get kicked out, because I like to keep it as a friendly place, a really friendly place that's supportive of everyone and their different teaching styles and backgrounds. Janelle, when you start beginners, do you still emphasize quality, ease and flow over minutes, practice and repetitions? I do, but parents who are not pianists often want something measurable. Yes, I've encountered that too. I generally stay away from minutes. If they really, really just want a guideline for minutes so that they get started with something, I totally get that. So I do offer them the suggestion of 3 times their age. That's just something to start with. That means a 5-year-old practice 15 minutes, and a 7-year-old practices 21 minutes. So it's kind of some kind of guideline, but generally I only give that if I'm really pushed and the parent really just wants a specific time. Otherwise, I say, make sure practice happens at the same time every day. The important thing is that they get to the piano, but don't worry too much about how long they stay there. and I encourage the parents to absolutely get involved and ask them, did you finish everything that Nicola asked you to do? Did you finish all the things on your list? Did you do this, that, and the other? But not so much the minutes that they're there, because normally if they do get to the piano, they stay there perfectly long enough doing things, and they're way more focused on what they're actually doing if they just get to sit down. So yes, I encourage them very strongly to pick a specific time or tie it to an activity, such as make it immediately after they finish their homework, immediately before they do their homework, straight after they brush their teeth in the morning. Just tie it to something, either a time or an activity. Janelle and Chris both like the idea of 3 times the age. I actually think I'd heard some other formula like that, like 7 plus 2 times their age or something. But where I heard that one was Shelley Davis. If any of you know the Piano Parent podcast, it's actually specifically for piano parents, so share it with your piano parents, definitely, but it's worth listening to as a teacher too. She does interviews with piano parents and with piano teachers, and it's one of the things she happened to mention that she recommends, and I thought it was a good formula to have for when teachers, parents really insist on having some kind of length of time to follow. Okay, Davenport Suzuki Violin says, very helpful tips. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And to get back to your point, Janelle, about the specific accomplishments. Yeah, I mean, even fairly early on, I will be encouraging them to focus on a specific goal. So that sheet I showed with you, that can be used with a 6-year-old, with the origami animals, that one. And it's really just a great way to get them to think about, what am I doing? Why am I doing it this way? What am I trying to get done? And they can do that, as soon as they've left a primer book, pretty much. Must Love Music Piano, that was Rosemary, wasn't it? I give repetitions that they should do for each thing they should focus on. That way there is no time given, but still gives concrete way for parents to check in. Yeah, I do that as well. Actually, the practice stickers might be useful for you now that I think of it, Janelle. I shared these stickers on the site a little while ago. If you just search the Colourful Key site for practice stickers, they should show up. So the practice stickers list specific steps, such as play the right hand, play the left hand, play hands together, something like that. Or clap the rhythm, play hands together, clap the rhythm again. So I can't remember specific steps, but they're things like that that give them at least steps to follow, that they're not just sitting down and playing the piece from start to finish. Even if they're just beginner steps, I think it's good for them to get into the habit of, this is my practice routine. I'm practicing now. I'm not playing. And the sooner we can distinguish that for them, the better. Chris, in college, they told us to practice per day, however long our lesson was. Yeah, I've heard that too. 30-minute lesson, 30 a day, 60-minute lesson, 60 a day. In Ireland, it seems pretty rare that people even go up to 45 minutes, which I find crazy. I try to get students up to 45 ASAP, but so that wouldn't work for them. But yeah, I just think that with the amount of young beginners I teach, that doesn't quite work. Like, they would still come for a 30-minute lesson, but they're not going to practice 30 minutes a day if they're 4. Like, that's not realistic. So yeah, I do just like that. Sit down at a certain time every day and play, and try to play everything on your list. Christy, I love your approach. Takes the responsibility of progress off of us and gives it to the student. Lets the student take ownership over his or her own learning. Absolutely. That's the idea. Because like I say, eventually I want them to be independent. I don't want to have to teach them for the rest of their lives, and that's not going to happen anyway. So what I want is for them to be able to work through problems and figure things out and set their own goals so that they're playing for their whole life. Janelle, amen. Thanks, Janelle. Okay, I'm going to switch off the screen share and just show you my face now. So So I think I've switched off there. Hopefully that'll show up. Yes, it is. So wonderful. It looks kind of like nighttime here. I had to put this up because there was a horrible glare and I didn't want you to be blinded because there's a door to my back garden. This is my little office and it's in my garden. So when you're watching webinars, I forgot to say it today, but when you're watching webinars that I do, I'm generally in here. And if you hear like incredible rainfall because there's a skylight, or you start to hear dogs barking or sirens going off, I don't live in a zoo, but this is my garden, so it gets a little bit loud sometimes, but it's still the best place to be away from everything and focus on you guys. Davenport, where are the practice stickers on the Colourful Keys site? Did you go to the site now? If you search for practice stickers, you know what? Let's just do it, and I'll drop the link in for you there. Let me look them up. Sorry, everybody, while I search for this, but keep writing your questions in and I'll get back to them now. Or just general comments. They don't have to be about intermediate practice. If you have other questions for me, I'd love to hear it. Here's the link. There we go. There's your practice stickers link. So that should work for you. To find those, you can download that directly from that page, and it's literally a sheet. Don't have any around here, but it's literally a sheet with different types of practice instructions, and they're on labels the way I do them, but you could just print them on, and cut them apart either, but they're set up for the size of labels that I have, and I just pop them directly on the method books. I'm not very precious about method books, so I tend to just stick things all over them and draw on them. You could put them on assignment sheets if that bothers you, but I like that they're directly on the sheet, and I can say in the lessons, okay, what are the practice steps, and then I make them do them at the next lesson as well. Thank you. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoy them. So I'll stick around for just a couple more minutes here. We're coming up on the hour. Christy uses these stickers and loves them. I love them too. They're really fun, aren't they? They just make things so simple. When you're in a lesson, I used to write in pencil at the top of students' score. Okay, practice steps for this week. 1, blah, blah, blah. 2, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why am I writing the same things over and over again when I would write it more clearly and succinctly and then just be able to print it and pop it on there? So that's what I did. And then I shared them with all of you. So I hope you enjoy those. As I was saying, I will stick around for just a couple more minutes here. Make sure you do check out the course. And if you have any questions about it, please write to me. You can private message me on Facebook, write to me in the community, or email me. If you had an email link to this webinar, you can just hit reply on that. So that goes directly back to my main email. So I will see it. It's not some, automated bot. It will come back to me, and you can ask me your questions about anything, including the course itself there. And the coupon code again is level up, all one word. But otherwise, I think I'm going to sign off here. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining me. Sorry about starting 3 minutes late. That's not like me at all. I'm usually so punctual, but there was some technical hoopla. So we got up in the end and everything's working smoothly. Yes, so thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's absolutely wonderful. Write to me in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers community. Check out the book on Amazon and elsewhere. If you hit on Handbook on the menu up above, right on the site you're on right now, you'll see the links to everywhere. So if you have a Kobo device or whatever, it's all around the place. So there's direct links there. And you can also check out the course there. There's full info about it. There's previews of the insides, and there's a taster version if you want to check it out. But if you do want to get that bonus, it's 24 hours. So act quickly. I'll shut it off tomorrow. Please do use it quickly, and I will give the bonuses, or gift the bonuses if you have them already, of those studio licensed playful practice cards. to the first 5. 5 people only. Okay? So thank you all so much for joining me. I'll stick around in the chat for a few more minutes if you have quick questions. And otherwise, I will see you on Facebook in the community, hopefully inside the course and on the Colourful Keys blog. Bye for now, guys.